could have rid Gotham of the fools in City Hall?
Gather around as we dive into the dark and delightful world of Gotham City. If you're a fan of comic books and the zany characters that inhabit them, you're in for a treat because today we're shining the bat signal on a villain who might not be as famous as the Joker or the Penguin, but he's got a cell-tastic story that's worth locking onto. You see, the DC Animated Universe, or DCAU, for you cool cats out there, has left a mark on the comic book cosmos. From the sheer brilliance of introducing Harley Quinn to the quirky futurism of Batman Beyond, it's a treasure trove of innovative ideas that have shaken up the DC universe. And one such treasure is the enigmatic and oh-so-enthralling villain known as Lockup. So, put on your utility belts and sharpen your batarangs, because in this episode, we're going to unlock the mysteries, the origins, and everything in between about this intriguing character who burst onto the scene in Batman, the animated series. Get ready to be amused as we dig deep into the vaults of Lockup's history. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Lockup, a brief rundown. Gotham's very own hardcore vigilant with a penchant for taking the law into his own ironclad hands. A guy who captures criminals and tosses them into the slammer for life has no trial and certainly no room for mercy. If that doesn't scream bat-tastic drama, I don't know what does. Lockup didn't just stroll into the comic book scene. He made his debut in the animated world, but he decided to don his comic book cape in Robin 24 back in '96. His first gig? Nabbing a villain named Charax's not a bad start, right? But he wasn't quite done causing chaos. In Detective Comics 694 that same year, Lockup made another cameo, this time bagging a minor troublemaker known as Weedwhacker. It's like he had a checklist of crooks to corral before bedtime, and he managed to snatch these baddies right from under Batman and Robin's noses. But Lockup's first full-blown appearance comes in Detective Comics 697 to 699. He kicked things off by snatching Two-Face, one of Gotham's most notorious two-timers, and dumped him into his very own private prison. Charax's, Weedwhacker, and a bunch of gangsters also found themselves cozying up behind bars, Lockup style. But there's more to Lockup than meets the eye. Underneath that metallic mask, he's revealed as Lyle Bolton, a loose cannon who'd been kicked out of the police academy for being a little too trigger-happy. I was discharged from several security jobs too.
The time has come to cleanse Gotham of the real criminal.
Lockup, Gotham's no-nonsense vigilant. Back to the Gotham of yesteryear, November 19, 1994, to be precise. The airwaves crackle with anticipation as an animated episode titled Lockup unfolds, courtesy of the stellar director Dan Reiba and the folks over at the Dong Yang Animation Studio. And guess who's behind the plot? None other than the maestro of mayhem himself, Paul Dini, and the dynamic duo of Marty Eisenberg and Robert N. Skur, who just happen to be huge comic book fans, bring the script to life. The episode kicks off, and it's a slow burn, like waiting for your Batmobile to warm up on a chilly Gotham night. There are no elaborate action sequences in the initial act, absolutely none. Instead, we see Batman and Robin escorting a frightened Scarecrow back to the infamous Arkham Asylum. Talk about a twist. Why would the Master of Fear himself be shaking in his straw-stuffed boots? Well, that's where our main man, Lyle Bolton, enters the scene. Bolton's trial, the Villainous Confession. You see, Bolton's the new head of security at Arkham, and he's got discipline written all over him. The kind of guy who thinks a stern look could turn the Joker into a model inmate, and guess what? He's actually pretty good at keeping these nutty felons behind bars. But here's the kicker. Scarecrow pulls off a plan and becomes the first escapee under Bolton's watchful eye. Batman, being the world's greatest detective, senses something fishy about Bolton. So he does what any billionaire would do. He switches to his Bruce Wayne persona and convenes a little powwow with Commissioner Gordon, Mayor Hill, and good ol' Dr. Bartholomew from Arkham. In a classic courtroom drama setup, Scarecrow, Harley Quinn, and Ventriloquist all take the stand. But here's the twist. None of them are willing to rat out Bolton in front of a live audience. Bruce decides to play his ace in the hole and announces his plan to extend Bolton's contract. Suddenly, the inmates drop their act, revealing Bolton's laundry list of abuses. The guy's crazier than the Joker in a funhouse mirror, and it's all out in the open. Bolton loses his cool, openly showing the world his unbalanced behavior. Goodbye cop career. Bolton gets the pink slip, just like a bunch of other villains with Dini-penned origin tales. But what sets Bolton apart is his sheer lack of sympathy points. Sure, there's a brief moment where he's all broody in his lonely apartment, pondering the injustices of his life, but let's be honest, it's not enough to make you want to offer him a shoulder to cry on. Now, get this. While watching the perky reporter Summer Gleason cover Poison Ivy's latest crime spree, Bolton's anger reaches peak levels. He starts ranting about the permissive, liberal media that seems to have a knack for making criminals look glamorous. And hey, maybe there's a smidge of truth there, right? Maybe Gotham's news outlets do have a thing for putting the spotlight on those costumed baddies. Lockup, Return of the Crazy Cop. But instead of exploring that potentially interesting angle, what do we get? Bolton reemerged 6 months later as the costumed vigilant Lockup. No, he doesn't take a sabbatical to find himself or meditate on life's mysteries. He just dives into the deep end of the crazy pool. His initial course of action: abducting Summer Gleason right after her evening out with Bruce Wayne. Now, if you're wondering when the action's finally going to kick in, it's almost 10 minutes into the episode before Lockup slips into his Batman-inspired tights. But Lockup isn't content with just one hostage. Oh no, he's the overachieving type. Within hours, he's snatched up Dr. Bartholomew and Commissioner Gordon. Batman doesn't need to be Sherlock Holmes to figure out who's under that mask. And yes, Robin's here for the shenanigans too, because folks demands it. And you know what? Robin's got some zingers in this episode, like when he quips, "Another fine villain made possible by a grant from the Wayne Foundation," much to Batman's annoyance. End of the line for Lockup. Our valiant heroes track down Lockup to an old decommissioned naval vessel, a place that once served as a makeshift replacement for Stonegate Penitentiary. It might not be the most thrilling location for a climactic battle, but hey, the animation is as steady and impressive as Batman's unwavering commitment to justice. Now let's talk about the grand finale, shall we? Bolton, the man behind the metal mask, gets what he deserves during an off-camera underwater tango with the Dark Knight himself. Some folks out there might have griped about this, but come on, it's Batman we're talking about. He's like the Swiss Army knife of superheroes. You've got to cut him some slack when it comes to taking down baddies in creative ways. As the dust settles and the waves calm down, we're left with a parting shot. Bolton, now Arkham's newest inmate, gets a less than warm welcome, greeted with jeers and laughter from the rogues gallery. But Bolton doesn't seem to mind one bit. Nope, he's right where he wants to be, keeping a vigilant eye on those criminals. It's a storyline that might ring a bell for you comics buffs out there, reminiscent of the Punisher and the infamous Rorschach. Bolton might not have the same grim demeanor, but his mission to keep the bad guys in check is just as relentless. From shadowy cameo to chaotic debut, comic book Chronology, you never cease to amaze us with your quirks and curiosities. I mean, who would have thought that Harley Quinn, the Queen of Chaos herself, had to twiddle her hat for a hopping 7 years before she could make her official debut in the hallowed halls of DC Comics continuity? Meanwhile, here's Lockup, the borderline C-lister, strutting into the scene like he owns the joint after just a year and a smidge. But hold on, folks, because Lockup's official debut wasn't served up on a silver platter. Oh no, it was teased with all the subtlety. First, he made a cryptic cameo in Robin 24, lurking in the shadows, driving away the villainous Chiraxes. And the fun didn't stop there. The very next month, Lockup decided it was time for a comedy break, snatching up the Allergent, a villain so hilarious you'd think he stepped right out of a Saturday morning cartoon. This one-page shenanigan unfolded in Detective Comics 694, just to keep us on our toes. But fear not, true believers, because Lockup's grand entrance was still in the pipeline, waiting to burst forth in a 3-part extravaganza in Detective Comics, starting with issue 697. This story was cooked up by the creative dream team of Chuck Dixon, Graham Nolan, and Scott Hanna. And, would you believe it, Nolan, usually known for his own style, channeled a bit of Todd McFarlane for the cover of 697. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Lockup has built himself a secret prison, like some twisted version of Erm, but with no room service. His guests are a bunch of villains, and they're in a real pickle. You see, there's a tiny problem. If the GCPD doesn't locate them soon, they'll all starve to death. And Lockup, well, he's not exactly in a sharing mood. Lockup Unleashed, the high-octane showdown. The next chapter in this high-octane saga has Lockup doing an escape act, leaving Batman with no choice but to unleash a brand new round of hide-and-seek in the twisted labyrinth of Gotham's underbelly. And let me tell you, folks, this is action-packed storytelling at its finest. But amid all the bone-crushing battles and cape-swooshing heroics, there's a quiet moment, a philosophical whisper in the dark between Batman and Gordon. It's like a deep dive into the moral quagmire of crime and punishment, straight from the Nindies playbook. You know, back when the idea of criminals getting off easy and the justice system failing the true victims was all the rage. It's the kind of stuff that used to justify giving those brooding, ultra-violent vigilants their own comic series. Dixon might be steering clear of the Arkham angle here, but he's attempting to add a layer of complexity to Lockup's character. I mean, let's face it, Bolton's just a wannabe cop who couldn't pass the psych tests. As for the philosophical musings, well, they're not exactly peppered throughout the rest of the arc. Batman, Robin, and Nightwing are too busy individually stalking potential Lockup victims, like they're playing an intense game of Gotham hide and seek. And guess who ends up in the hot seat? It's none other than Robin himself, becoming Lockup's next inmate. But never fear, because Oracle's on the case, because in Gotham City, apparently, everyone's got a role to play. With Oracle's high-tech wizardry and a little help from the Nightwing, Batman finally manages to sniff out Lockup's location. And let me tell you, the showdown that unfolds at the abandoned gun battery turned makeshift prison is a visual spectacle, as 90s as you can get. Graham Nolan must have been channeling his inner Nindies artist for those pages. Interestingly, this tale concludes with Batman emerging victorious over Lockup in an encounter that occurs off-screen. Let's simply acknowledge that he's more than capable of such feats.
Defense?
It's over, Bolton.
Is Lockup more powerful than Batman? Well, fellas, it's time to break out Lockup's fact sheet and see what this guy brings to the vigilant table. Here's a rundown of Lockup's skill set that would make even Batman raise an eyebrow. Hand-to-hand combat. Lockup isn't just good at the old fisticuffs. He's practically a one-man wrecking crew when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. You wouldn't want to challenge this guy to a thumb war, let alone a brawl. Law. Yep, Lockup knows his way around the legal system. He's got a law degree tucked away somewhere, which probably comes in handy when he's hauling criminals off to his personal prison. Tactical analysis. Lockup isn't your run-of-the-mill vigilant. Oh no, he's a master tactician, always thinking 5 steps ahead like a chess grandmaster. You won't catch him off guard. Escapology. If you ever find yourself tied up in a Lockup predicament, good luck getting out of those restraints. This guy could give Houdini a run for his money with his mad escapology skills. Weapons of choice. Lockup doesn't mess around when it comes to gear. His trusty steel chain is like an extension of himself, and he wields it with the finesse of a ninja wielding nunchucks. Plus, he's got a handy baton for those times when he needs a little extra oomph.
We could have rid Gotham of the fools in City Hall.
Marvelous verdict. In the ever-evolving world of comic book lore, Lockup remains a character both intriguing and mysterious. With his unique blend of skills, Lockup stands as a multifaceted figure in the world of crime fighting and vigilantism. While not always in the spotlight alongside the likes of the Joker or Mr. Freeze, Lockup's presence adds depth and diversity to the pantheon of characters within the DC universe. His relentless pursuit of justice, often taking the law into his own hands, raises thought-provoking questions about the blurred lines between heroism and vigilantism. Over the years, Lockup has served as a reminder that the world of comics is not solely defined by its A-list heroes and villains. His appearances, though sporadic, have left a mark on our collective imagination, showcasing that even lesser-known characters can contribute to the rich world of storytelling within the comic book realm. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.